Good evening. This is Ronald Allen with Managing Change Through Effective Communications. Today's discussion, a reverse conversation. Where on earth does this idea come from, and what or how can we benefit from this kind of perspective? Well, reverse conversation is understanding that in many cases, whether it's a product being produced, whether it's conversations with people and outcomes and certainly not achieved, but other opportunities that then present themselves. When we get involved in situations, we go in with one perspective and we basically come out with something totally different or unexpected. So I wanted to share some thoughts with you, with some people I've worked with, some ideas that I've picked up which seem to coalesce with this topic. And I'm going to start off with a good Toastmaster friend of mine. I recently met her, Lorraine Cuff. She had her first book signing the other night right here in sunny New Jersey. And went to see her. She had a nice gathering of about 15-20 people. Many of them are military. She is military. She is a master sergeant, 24 years, seasoned, and she's written her first book. You can certainly go online. If you Google Lorraine Cuff, or certainly go onto my social media site, you'll see it up there shortly with links to her site. The reason why I mention her, and certainly the work that she's doing, is being in the training environment in the military, and she's worked across global environments, so she's not just stateside, and enjoyed that safety. She's realized that in many cases, what you think is going to happen, what you expect from people, what you might presume, assumption, is not necessarily the outcome. And having an open mind, having I've used the word eclectic mindset, can allow you to take advantage of even bad situations. And I've got, of course, my notes that I've done a little homework on. Let's look at a few products, because those are the more easily readily identified that you can see and understand, and then we'll extrapolate into your own days, weeks, months, situations that you found yourself. And I'll ask you to rehash, rethink, revisit those. So first off, did you know that Viagra was initially a product for men's post, I believe it's to do with our colons. It was to address clogging and medical conditions of men's colonostomy issues. I believe that's the basic idea of what Viagra used to be used for, or was intended for, and it didn't work. And it was put on the shelf, and sometime later in observations, in research that was done, they noticed that, whoa, they get an erection, and that was all good. The rest, as they say, is history. Many of you may know that Post-it notes were initially for permanent fixing of one object or fixture to another. Of course, the glue was not as solid as expected, the chemical composition, and then they came up with Post-it notes, which now are in multiple colors, multiple signs. They're used for legal notice of signing here on legal documents. It's used for research. It's used for notation, reminding you where things are, breaking up or codifying books where you can quickly find information. It's also used for if you want temporary Post-its on boxes you're moving or you're labeling, and certainly in project management, in Agile, right? On those storyboards, used in daycare centers, etc., etc., etc. Did you know that the AIDS virus back in the 60s and 70s was a hotbed of do not touch, do not talk, do not associate with certain people? Well, now today, certain aspects of that virus are used to treat pain, used to treat cancer. Over time, the application, because of knowledge, because of reading, because of wanting to be inquisitive, wanting to explore, wanting to navigate different paths, different uses, these different applications, these different chemical compositions, these different tools, if you will, have then been repurposed, right? We talk about transformation in the individual. We talk about repurposing your skills. We talk about going back and recrafting yourself. Well, that's what they've done with all these products. Adaptation, I'm going to go a little step further here. Adaptation in understanding our radar system that is very sophisticated today still does not compare to the dolphin's ability to communicate. Sonar. The bat, we have a few, we run in from time to time. When it starts to get dusk, the bats come out and we go in. Well, their radar, and we've noticed their behavior with our dogs as opposed to us, very different. They're more aggressive with our dogs, even though they are big dogs. So that's an adaptation, isn't it? That's a mind shift. You have to have the mind shift to get the adaptation of how something else could work or how you can apply, right? Grasshoppers. Did you know the Harrier jet, which is probably one of the oldest military, Air Force military craft that takes off vertically, and now with the new, I think it's the F-15, it's a whole other level. I mean, it's an incredible piece of machinery, and they test them right here at McGuire Air Force. Again, if we're going to talk about effective communication, if we're going to address managing change through effective communications, we have to first of all understand where we are mentally with the environment that we've been exposed to, our past, our culture, our social inclinations, our theology, our teachings, this nucleus of people around us. And then where do we want to go with that? Do we have an inquisitive bone in our bodies? Do we have a desire to reach beyond our comfort level? And what resources are we reaching out to support that? Because it is unnerving. At the same time, and I've realized if we keep saying something is difficult, there is an immediate barrier, there's an immediate apprehension to going forward, to trying it. You've almost hobbled yourself, you've given yourself a handicap before you're even out of the gate. So here are some examples, and I haven't been perfectly specific and statistical with all the information. You can Google it. That, by the way, is a whole other mindset. A lot of people feel that young people quickly go to Googling things. Yet there is a disruptor message in saying you're going to Google and using that tool in the right way. Because there still has to be a evaluation, an assessment of how accurate that information is. So as we talk about reverse conversation, we're looking to understand when you enter into a conversation, when you enter into a situation, when you find yourself among your colleagues at work, and most importantly at home, because, don't be fooled. Just because you live with one another, you are not jousting and putting in little gambits to get favorable outcomes. So our mantra, if you will, managing change to get mutually effective outcomes, holds more so, is true more so with people you know and are close to, because you have to, you know that they've got a good side, a bad side, a good time, a bad time. You feel it, you understand it, you sense it. Whereas people at work, it's very mechanical. Those who understand strategic communications and gambits use it and love, as they say in fencing, they parry back and forth, right? That's the fun of conversation. You know that someone is working you, you're working them, and you do it in a polite, professional, earnest manner. Your intent is that you all walk away with mutually beneficial outcomes. You might want a little bit more, and that's okay. And I think that's healthy. I think that is the way we should be conducting communication with one another. Not in a hostile, beat down, Neanderthal mentality, but rather one that shows that you are ready to combat in a, I'll use the term, gentleman's manner. Okay, so moving along. So when we talk about reverse conversation, think of the times when you had a negative conversation and you just felt it was a waste of time. You didn't think you were going to get what you wanted. What if, the biggest word in the dictionary, if, next to I, what if you said to that person, can we try your idea first? And if we don't get the percentage of results, if we don't get the optimum outcomes, if we don't get the required feedback, can we then mix up some of my ideas? Are you open to trying my approach? How would that change the conversation? More importantly, how would that change future engagement with those people or the individual? Products designed for one application can, in many cases, if not very specific, and there are many products, of course, can be used or repurposed, transformation, into applications for something else. In car racing, for example, 75-80% of the time, a team, and these are multi-million-dollar teams, building engines, qualified engineers, they lose 80% of the time, yet they are learning from that experience. Was it the thickness of the tire? Was it the inflation pressure of that tire? Different tires. Were we using a certain gauge disruptor? Were we using some different alloy? Was my suit perspiring a little bit too much? Was the engine exasperating a little bit too much? So when we think of reverse conversation, take those negative outcomes, take those I didn't get situations, take the so-called failures that people love to use that phrase. I failed, I failed, I failed. On the back end of that, you should be saying, what did I learn? What did we learn? I mentioned in the beginning of this discussion, I said, I met some people who were sharing with me some what I thought was very enlightening information. And these people are at the top of their game. They really are. They're educated. They've come from very recognized backgrounds. And yet, they are and were, at least with me, very humble. What I walked away with was they wanted to learn more. What else can we do? What else is out here? That's effective communications. Because if you can engage the opposition, let's say it's opposition as opposed to a team, people working together, and especially even if it's a team working together, quite frankly, you'll find that push and pull, right? People are trying to vie for position. It is the way that we engage one another in order to optimize our outcomes. And it's the little nuances, it's the timing of when we introduce or pull back on a topic. It's whether we can infer something else which seems to be totally out of the left field. That's my right, by the way, but I'm doing that because I guess it'd be your left. If we can do that more often, we can ratchet down the noise. We can ratchet down the apprehension, the nervousness that comes in any conversation. Take a husband and wife talking about going out for the night. There you go. One wants to go left and one wants to go right. They're both equally right in terms of their positioning. It is how we go about that. And there are steps that are very simple, and I share them with you on these short live chats so that you can walk away. One, assess your past. Two, do you have the leverage, do you have the desire to make that adjustment replacement? And two, then execute and be willing to understand that maybe a different set of ingredients, maybe I need to try a different approach next time, maybe I need to be a little bit more forceful in some cases. Absolutely. We found that, for example, with the group of gentlemen that I was working with, I'm not going to mention the company, they're scientists. They do a lot of outsourcing, and some of the technicians from the outside have a very different perspective. They feel that because they've delivered in the past in a great way, no problems, no issues, all is well with the world. And as we know, that's not the case at all, because someone from somewhere out of the dark will knock down or improve or bring a better system to bear on what we're applying for. And I always love to use the Jack Walsh from GE, who had to close down a Philadelphia walk-in refrigeration plant right there in Philadelphia. It's 45 miles away from here. No union issues, no pay strikes, no OSHA citations, city was fine, taxes were fine, employees were relatively happy, nothing strenuous. Just 10,000 miles away, another company made the same product cheaper. Now, if we only focus on price, dollars and cents, we're missing the boat completely. What we're realizing because of technology is that not only are we bringing products to the market more efficiently, our mindset has to change. Because when you go to Google and you don't use the standard filtering process of a good researcher from a library, hello, one of the oldest professions that have helped communities and businesses, law, finance, research. If we don't use those skills, we're missing the point of what Google is all about. Look what happened to Wikipedia. Great platform, great idea, great concept. You still need to vet, validate, and test. So in reverse conversation, how about being proactive and saying to ourselves, okay, this is what I want. What would someone on the other side come back asking me for? What about multiple options, walking in with that mentality? What about studying more of how we are incentivized, right? We focus on what we want, understand those drivers, and then say, is that the optimum way? Is that going to give the kind of outcomes we want? Or is it short term, such as farming, for example? I take farming because I watch a lot of the programs. I'm out here in the farmers community. And it's amazing how short term we think in terms of the production of farming. Cows are in one section, chickens are in another section, certain products that are grown, whether it's corn, whether it's barley, whether it's tomatoes, alfalfa, they're all in separate fields. When in fact, because of the movement of pollinating and the necessary dispensing of waste, the chickens should be coming into the field after the cows leave. It's rotation. Reverse conversation is, let's put that back into place. instead of having the heavy manure, the feces, collecting in the field, and we just, usually they use a tractor, pick it up and take it to one dump. Chickens can clean that up, and it's safe. Why? Because cows are not eating meat. They're eating the greens. They're eating the grass. So there is a understanding of how that system works, and sustainability, long-term sustainability, and therefore economic benefit, return on investment. So sometimes when we think of, well, it's taking longer, we also have to think it's more sustainable, right? Here's another one talking about food. How many of you prepare your food at home? Now, I know the noise already. I can see the noise level. I don't have time. I got to get up and get to work. Well, are you preparing the day before by going to bed a little earlier? Well, I get home late. Okay, so now you're in a rat mill, right? You're in a rat mill. Reverse conversation would be stop. Just stop. Take a day off and say, okay, I'm now going to go to bed a little earlier. I'm going to get up a little earlier. I'm going to make my food. I'm going to sit down and guess what? Talk to the people that are in my house. There's amazing. I did some workshops with some parents and youth the other day. And I had the youth talk to me separately, and I had the parents talk to me separately. And you know what? They have the same problem. They don't talk to each other. That's what they said to me. So I introduced this reverse conversation idea. And I had kids talk to different parents. And then I had the parents and the kids talk to each other. And you know what? Smiles actually came across their face. So again, it's taking these, what seems to be simple approaches, I would call them natural approaches, just a whim, going up to your loved one, just pecking them on the nose, pecking them on the ear, him or her. Remember, if 80-90% of our conversation is non-audible, then the touch is everything. The expression, the silliness, even at work, because let's face it, guys, if we are spending all this time at work, we're developing a closer relationship than, say, the first couple of months that you meet somebody. So why not engage? Why not be a little inquisitive? Why not be a little whimsical? Politely, professionally. Not everyone wants that. In fact, to this very point, reverse conversation, the introverts, and this is very interesting, introverts are actually the ones we should be listening to, because they are assimilating, collecting, and evaluating the complete environment, not just the conversation, not just the person that's mouthing off. They're assessing the whole environment. So when their input is presented, they could also be including the failure of management to set up a collaborative environment. They can also be introducing a predatory environment that many personalities, based on the profession, based on the level of education, based on the acclamation of the employees, that most people feel actually threatened. So it does get a little bit more serious than what I had started off with. Bottom line, time taken to check where you are, check how your position, you present yourself, and time to reset is absolutely crucial. So think of reverse conversation as, what is the reverse of my position when I go into a conversation? If I was on the other side of the table, what other applications could be used or have not been introduced? And are we willing to include them in different phases, different times, and not using these excuses that we don't have time, because there is no such thing as time. We never have time. No one has time anymore. So we need to reverse that. We need to arrest that, if you will. So this is our reverse conversation for tonight. This is Ronald Allen, managing change through effective communications. You do know where to find me. Appreciate the evening. Take care.